Welcome back to Break the Gate. This week we're raiding the archives for anything and everything to do with networking and promotion. We'll hear from past guests like Jenny Arman and Tyler Johnson on the best way to connect and promote both yourself and your work. If you want to learn more about how the entertainment industry really works, we cover a range of related topics with a new guest every week. You can follow Break the Gate on Spotify, listen on iTunes, or subscribe to the video version of the podcast on YouTube.
When we look at like breaking the gate, so far the one singular thing that I see is that your network is the most important thing that you have. The things that like the people you start off with and grow with are like that's the pivotal like difference between being successful and not. And that's been across every interview that we've done thus far. Everyone talks about like I did this punk rock like promotion with my brother, like magazine with my brother, and now I'm working for like I did Rolling Stone and Billboard, and that's fucking awesome to see. That it's like, thank you for getting me on this podcast because that is uniform across the board.
I mean, I think the key thing is just having the resilience to do it, to like go after it all. Because I'll tell you, like I won an Emmy when I was at Comedy Central. And then I got laid off from Comedy Central and didn't have a job. And I stocked groceries at a bodega, like a couple blocks from my apartment here in New York for like 5 months.
Yeah.
Like through Christmas, where I had to like saw Christmas trees and get Christmas tree sap all over my hands and like deliver Christmas trees to people. But I was like waking up at 5 a.m. to stock vitamins and shit in this like little small market in my neighborhood because I needed a job.
Sure.
And I had a fucking Emmy.
Right.
So it's like,
dude, this
it's like,
industry will chew you up and spit you out, but it'll also make your dreams come true.
Somebody pulled me aside after a couple new business pitches and was like, by the way, you can do this full time, right? And I was like, what? That doesn't make sense. This is way too fun. Right. But they were right. And so I said, I quit. I joined a music company as literally just a receptionist. I didn't even care. I just wanted to see how it all worked. And before I had left, I made a lot of really nice contacts. And so people started bringing me work to my company, even as like a low level, assistant in a music house. But so that was one golden ticket for me. Those relationships that were converting to money for the company I was working for. Also great commercial, like great spots, great projects. And then also on the educational side, I was learning how people were composing, how to write about music, what instrumentation worked for this, what's going to work to picture, music licensing as well. So I was just absorbing everything, taking notes, and kind of moved my way up in that world. I am really a relationship junkie. I feel like people are so precious. My grandma always said, it's not what you know, it's who you know. And those contacts and relationships from my Rolodex have been incredibly, not only just rewarding professionally and financially, but also on a friendship standpoint. Like I love our industry. I think it is filled with amazing people that are artists that have somehow converted their art to make a living, and they're incredibly talented and smart, all sides of them, client and creative. So that's how I got to where I am. I would get to one point and like kind of hit a ceiling, and then I'd go to the next point and reach out and keep moving. If I felt like I couldn't move up, or I couldn't get a raise to pay my bills or whatever, or if I wasn't doing what I wanted creatively and I felt really stuck, I'm that type of person that embraces change a lot. I think some people really get in that rut of doing the same thing every day and thinking there might not be any other options, but actually there are so many options out there. So I would just encourage everybody listening to really go for what you want. Do not settle. Hold your breath and jump.
So on the aspect of like booking, right? There's definitely gotta be some artists that kind of suck ass to book for and just like work with. How are you dealing with that to make sure that you're maintaining these relationships with their booking agents? Because essentially, if that artist is like, we're never working with this guy again, you can burn that bridge. How do you make sure that you're handling that?
Well, avoiding situations that would create that animosity in the first place is number one. And number two, to help assist that is just being completely transparent with everything. Like if you're shady or like you're like not being, just tell everybody what happened. Like at the end of the show, like the person I booked the show with, I give them the entire numbers of everything because there's nothing for me to hide. We had a deal. I'm honoring it, and I want you to see that and not worry about it. Right now, every once in a while, one of the band members gets too drunk or something, and then as the promoter, like you have to be the one to check them, and so they might not want to work with you after that because they're like, dude, fuck this guy, I can do whatever I want, I'm a rock star. And I get that, like I get that, right? But like if they don't want to work with me again because of that, then whatever. But I think most of the time it doesn't get to that point, and so I think I've been a little fortunate where I haven't really run into that too much. But I think that's because we don't let it get to that point in the first place. And we're transparent, we're hospitable, like we buy food for the artists even if it's not in the rider and all that kind of stuff. So most of the time you're having a good time. And then the opposite side of that is, I haven't recently booked any tours, but back in the day I was booking a lot of tours for these bands, like, which is part of my inspiration to get going. Like my homies' band should have been on tour and they got stuck here and bled dry. So I'm trying to get these bands to go on the road. So when I am booking a show for a band from wherever, I'm like being like, hey, I'm taking care of them because I want them to owe me a show for the band that I'm sending to their area. And so,
yeah, for sure.
It's you got my back, I got yours. And that's always been the mentality for me.
Yeah. So that should be a mentality for artists or bands that are hitting up promoters like yourself, just to keep that in the mind. Mm-hmm. It's kind of an unspoken rule. I feel like, if somebody comes to you and says, hey, I helped you out, help them out.
Yeah, because then they're going to help you back and just keeps going. Like, it's not about it's a good business move to assist other people looking to do the same thing as you, no matter what that is.
Mm-hmm. Don't be a gatekeeper.
Don't.
Yeah, for sure.
You got to break the gate.
Right. Exactly. Hey.
I think it's a good idea for anybody going into any field to, get as much perspective on everything as possible, like in the industry that they're going into. So, I remember, there was local shows in my hometown at this church called Set Free Church. And then, we ended up, I ended up joining the team and doing sound production on the team and learning sound and just learning anything I possibly could to just be a part of the process, Yeah. And from there, I basically, was handed the venue and was able to start managing the venue and then started booking all my favorite bands and stuff like that. And
hell yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, through there, I was kind of able to see like how like all the processes were taken care of between like music venue and booking agent and how like all the back end stuff was taken care of. So I kind of got a little bit of perspective through there. And then I got picked up to do some sound on a few tours from some pretty decent sized bands and had a lot of fun. Got to learn a lot about touring and like how like all that's done. And just always knowing that I wanted to be an artist manager. So like I knew the next step in my career path was to start booking tours. And and that's kind of how, learning that process is like, okay, well, we can do more on the back end for our bands, instead of just like booking these tours and like letting it just be. It's like, okay, well, we can do more for them. We can help the promoter find good local support, and do more, build more relationships with like the promoters we work with to ensure that like the whole process is fluid and everybody's taken care of. And there's a flyer, like I even know like Photoshop and Adobe skills now where I can do video editing and stuff like that, where it's like, we can do all that stuff on the back end to help these bands actually, be successful at what they're doing instead of just like, mindlessly booking tours and like trying to get out there and, reaching little to nobody at these shows,
having those relationships with all the promoters I work with is a big step in that, just hearing things and seeing things around like the industry and seeing like how, different communities behave. And it's like, okay, well, how can I help those processes and, to ensure that like everybody's taken care of. And like, I've even had like tours where, we've had like girls on the tour and, they felt, kind of like, in danger at times and like, okay, how can I be involved and how can I help, to help, make sure that everybody on this tour is safe and everybody in this community is safe. And I think the relationships that I've built along the way with the promoters is definitely important to that process.
I agree. It's so important for kids to have that, because that's the reason why I started going to shows, because it was like, that was my way to escape, be around a bunch of people that were all interested in the same thing. And it sucks, being somebody who gets stuck in that position, where the one place they felt safe, they weren't safe. So, but
in the meme and content game, like there's always something new that you can jump on and just like meme or make some content from that. We've really tried to, or I personally have really tried to put a lot of time and energy into building our network of partners. So something I've been doing I started like at the beginning of this year, was reaching out to different YouTubers and different TikTok creators themselves, instead of like making all the content ourselves, partnering with these other people to be like, we'll share your content in exchange for XYZ. Or like, if you look on like the Scene Daddy services page, so if there's any like artists, bands, whatever, looking to be featured on like Scene Daddy, or if you're even looking for like YouTube reactions and things like that, like I've really put in a lot of time to forming good connections with like YouTubers in the reaction scene. So like Orion Reacts is a big one that we work with, Hardcore Keem, stuff like that, where bands can come to us for like, they want to be featured on Scene Daddy, but then we also offer like kind of these a la carte other services. So like you can connect with these YouTubers to get your stuff featured on their channels and things like that. So I think we've kind of moved away from just always making our own content to curating content in a way that makes sense for everybody, if that makes sense.
So I was gonna, that's actually, I was gonna ask about that. Like, how do you go about presenting the idea to the magazines or other online media publications of some sort, or even just YouTube reactors? Like, how does that exchange happen? You just be like, "Hi, I'm Tyler from Scene Daddy. I'm also getting my doctorates." Or like, how do you present that?
Yeah, no, there's very few people like that I work with in the music industry that actually know that I'm doing a PhD, except for the people that I have on Facebook, because that's like the only place that I post. But I mean, in terms of like YouTube reactors and things like that, like I was a big like YouTube reactor fan, so I just followed a lot of channels where I was like, I'm just going to reach out and see what happens. And, I would say like 30% of the time you actually get something back, and that starts a conversation. Some people are very open to it. Some people are like, yeah, this is not for me. And I'm like, yeah, that's totally fair. Especially, with the TikTok creators too. Sometimes they'll have their own thing where I'm like, I'm not looking to like partner with anybody, or no, it doesn't make sense for me to like work with you on this capacity. Other people, it does make sense. Like we have an in-house TikTok curator who does like stuff for us when a band wants, TikTok content created. Other people are like, nah, I got my own thing. It's okay. So it kind of is what it is. In terms of like Don't Blink Music Group, I act as a publicist there. So I'm reaching out to a lot of like magazines and other things. So that's just me on like a press level. Like, hey, I'm working with this band. They have this release. Would you be interested in covering it? Trying to obviously pitch that in an exciting and engaging way, other than here it is.
For sure.
It's kind of the job, but
absolutely.
Sometimes we get like random channels reaching out to us to work with us. Like the marketing team that ran When We Are Young Fest reached out to us and be like, hey, we think it would be fruitful for us to have you create a meme for us. Would you be open to it? We're like, perfect. We would love to.
Cool.
So it's just like random stuff like that. We've had like some record labels reach out and be like, this band's dropping the song. Can you create some like meme or TikTok content? Sure, always. So it just kind of like comes in waves with whatever's happening.
So what would be the best way for an artist to kind of get their music in front of you?
I get this question a lot. So
I'm sure.
So I think the first thing is, you're going to all laugh, but acknowledging that we are human beings. We
makes
are
sense.
humans. We are not just money churning people and money cows. Although sometimes we do find ourselves in that role, which is very rewarding. But if I were you as an artist, what I would do is I would research who you're looking up and who you want to hit up. I get blanket emails all the time. Check out this music. And guess what? It doesn't match anything I've done nor anything I would ever do. So look back, go into people's IMDb pages, go to their LinkedIn, go to their website, find out what projects that they're working on or what vibes they're usually working with within music, and tailor your batch to that. Also, again, we're humans. Somebody did something to like that really impacted me. And by the way, this would never be expected. And I just would never expect anyone to ever do this in the future. But it really impacted me. I do a lot of philanthropy work. I get involved in a lot of organizations that I try to help the world as much as possible. And somebody caught wind of a women's shelter that I was actively volunteering with and involved with. And they made a $20 donation, which again, I don't want to take y'all's money. I don't want you to shell out money, but just the fact that they were like, okay, this is something that means something to her. It's going to mean something to me now. And then they were impacted. That was just amazing.
That is amazing.
It was. And I'll never forget that instance. Then I've helped mentor that person and their catalog. I've tried to help them get more syncs, link them in with other people. Like, it just went a long way. Again, don't shell out money if you don't have it. Don't try to buy people with a gift card, but like, just take an interest in what we're doing and really tailor your pitch. There's a couple other things I want to list about this. One, never include your tracks as an attachment, because our inboxes will die. They will be clogged and we will not be able to work. And then we're going to be really, really pissed off at you. So make a WeTransfer link, a Dropbox link, a Box.com link. Disco is the best. I don't get paid to say this, but get it yourself a Disco login and send links that way. Sometimes people have a Disco link that you can just constantly upload to their Disco link, and they'll have a nice little library of all the people that have submitted that they can review. I don't have that link just because I'm always working on different things, but maybe I will. But Disco's the best. Just have some sort of digital way to send a link of your music. Do not attach it, please.
Bands from out of town hitting you up, and they are sending you probably way too much information, talking about how they know someone of someone of someone, right? So what does a good email look like for you when someone's hitting you up like, hey, I'm this band, we're from Wisconsin, how the hell do I get into California? What is the best approach?
It's a great question because, man, I'm not reading your book,
Yeah, for sure. Exactly.
I don't really need to know your whole band's history, your whole band's bio. Like, give me like 2-3 sentences about your band. Summarize it. Don't copy and paste the thing you have on your website for the public to read about you and get to know you. And like, the number one thing is include a YouTube video link or something so that I can just watch and listen to you from my email. I don't have to click and go to another app or another page or anything. Like, that's the number one thing that makes it easier. Like, I could read the book if I can just click on and at the bottom,
Done.
Yeah.
Are EPKs good for you then at that point? So like,
yes and no. They're almost still too much information. So like, they're like really nice and they're well put together, but like, most of the bands that are hitting us up are doing it without a booking agent or with a homie that's the booking agent, so EPK isn't quite necessary yet because I'm not, and I don't need like a writer and an EPK. I just need a YouTube video, maybe a link to your social medias, because if I like your music, then I'm going to go to your social media. But like, I don't want to have to go to Spotify and load that to listen to your songs. I want to be able to click it in my email box and just look at it right there.
keep it
Super
simple,
simple.
dumb.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You could put it
And
straight
please
there.
send
Like,
your
that's-
music, because I've had people just send photos of their band and stuff. I'm like, I'm not booking you,
okay,
dude.
you
Like,
look
sorry.
nice.
Like, please send me
Yeah.
the link to your music and make it so I can play it in there, and everything will be so much easier.
Yeah. What about attachments? MP3 attachments.
That's cool. I can jam it from my email. You know, I can just click on
Okay.
it and it'll play through Google Drive. I'm totally cool with that.
Yeah.
So what we learned, one, if it's to a library, get links. If it's to booking agents, they're pretty open with it.
Yeah.
We just learned that.
Yeah.
Hey, yeah. So
Like a lot of bands don't know like the process. It's like, okay, who do I reach out to? Who do I like
Right,
contact?
exactly.
You know, and
Yep.
like what my agency does, what the Dreamer agency does is like we have a trusted network across the West Coast of promoters that are just awesome. They just believe in helping these bands develop and like helping these bands get in front of new audiences and what can they do to assist the process. And I can't say enough about the promoters I work with, but it's just getting and building those relationships with people like that, with those promoters, and trying to figure out like what it's going to take to have a successful show, you know. So if you're going to a market that you've never been to before, what's it going to take, you know? Because obviously you're going to need at least gas money to be able to afford those expenses, right?
Yep.
So you got to talk to your promoter, you got to communicate with your promoter and build a strategy behind it. You know, you got to be honest. We've never been to this market before, but we know, you know, some bands that are from this market that'd be willing to play with us. You know, like if it even takes like you reaching out and booking those locals yourself, that's what it takes, you know. And those locals just gave you a favor, so you got to make sure you take care of those locals and like and return the favor, you know. So if they wanted to come back to your home market, you know, make sure you return the favor.
And then I would say, I'm sorry, you guys, I'm just talking so much, but there's
No, this is why we
this
have
is
you
great.
on.
Yeah, this is awesome.
It's not
taking,
about us.
taking notes right now.
Yeah.
I would go back to like the conception phase of creating a track. Okay. You're in a studio, you're with your buds, and you've recorded. Okay. Have that split sheet ready to sign off on all of your splits. Agree on it at that point, because guess what? If you wait for a saint to come in, that is going to get messy, and the music supervisor is going to move on. They don't want drama. They want ease. They want it to be clean. So, okay, you know, you get 50%, you get 50%, boom, signed, loaded, done.
I think that there's something to said. Like, I know a lot of artists don't like the idea of like advertising for their music, but I found that that is honestly one of the best ways just to get your music in front of other people. You have to put in money to like get something out of it. There's a whole other debate within that itself, but I don't know, being on the business side of these sort of things, like we've definitely seen the advantages of doing it. So, and then being able to capture that data. So there's the whole, like, you know, having a Facebook pixel and having all these things in place before you even start like the advertising. That way you can kind of capitalize that as you move forward. So
absolutely,
I'm just talking as like an advertiser, but
sure. Yeah, no, that's good. And honestly, you said something that is very important that a lot of bands don't have is a Facebook pixel.
Yeah, it's my biggest recommendation for any artist.
Can you actually explain what that is? Because I feel like a lot of people don't understand what it is.
Yeah, so like as an artist, so basically within your Facebook page, assuming you have one, because you have to have a Facebook page to have an Instagram essentially, and you have to have one to be able to run ads on Facebook. You can set up what's called a pixel. I could pretty much walk you through it if I had, if people had reached out to me, but essentially it's just a piece of code that you add onto whatever website or landing page or Spotify, whatever, that can track people, you know, in a good way, that are going to wherever you're sending them. So if you put a Facebook pixel on your landing page for a song, you have a new single, create a landing page for it with a bunch of different links. So you have like the album art, you have the Spotify link, Apple Music, YouTube, whatever. We would create like a custom conversion campaign for you where we would target niche audiences, sending those people to this landing page. with the optimization that they're going to click one of those links. Now, once they've gone to that page, if you have a Facebook pixel embedded on that, basically you can track that person's Facebook account, I guess. So
Activity.
that when you run ads again in the future, you can retarget people that have already interacted with your previous ads, which is, in terms of retargeting, that is like the best marketing you can possibly do because people already showed some kind of interest.
Yeah.
So once they
this
essentially
would be good
click through,
specifically for. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, once they already like click through, they may or may not continue down your process of like your click funnel, essentially. So if you're trying to sell merch too, if you get them to the page, that's one thing. If you get them to like click on a product, that's another thing. If you get them to input your credit card information, that's another thing. Then if they actually buy it, that's a whole other thing. But you can target them at different stages of that process with like, hey, we saw you were interested in this thing. You may now want to buy it. And that tends to have a much higher percentage in terms of, purchasing or conversions.
I mean, I always say, like, even working at Comedy Central and digital media didn't exist when I was in high school. So like, how would I always wanted to work in TV and film. I always want to win an Emmy and Oscar, but how would I have known in high school I'm going to win an Emmy in digital media?
Yeah, for sure.
When it didn't exist, you know? So like, don't worry so much about like your life being on track because you don't even fucking know what that track is or what roads are going to even develop out of nowhere. Like, it's insane. Like, you can't plan life and you should not beat yourself up if it's not going a certain way at that moment because you don't even know what's going to exist next year
For sure.
that you might be the right person for,
High school me thought I was going to be managing some of the biggest bands in the country. Didn't realize it was going to be
I thought I was
an engineering track and doing a podcast about entertainment, which I prefer so much more.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. I mean, some people like 20 years ago, nobody thought like 20 years ago, Joe Rogan didn't know he was going to be Joe Rogan with his podcast because there weren't podcasts, Like,
yeah.